Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, I'm Ray Flowers. I'm from FantasyGuru.com. Maybe you've heard of me. Maybe you've heard of us. If you haven't, welcome to the show. Whether you're watching live on YouTube at youtube.com/at Elite Sports. I don't even know what I'm talking about. At Elite Sports Network. Let me try that again. YouTube. I see it when you come in different. I should have just come in with my normal energy. I tried to be cool and different, and I screwed it all up. Jeez. Let's try that again. If you're watching live, you know. If you're not watching live, you can watch live every day, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 o'clock Pacific Time here on Fantasy Sports Daily with me, Ray Flowers. It's on YouTube, youtube.com/Elite Plus Network. On Facebook at facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. And in both of those spots, you can watch live. And not only can you watch live, which is kind of cool, I think, right? You also get the opportunity to leave comments. If you have something you want to say, if you have something you want to share, if you have a question, leave those and we'll address them at the end of the show. I think that's kind of cool. Hopefully you enjoy that. I think a lot of people do. And so we'll do that again today. What else we're going to do today is we're going to also talk a lot of football and baseball because it's a Friday. Normally on Fridays we visit with Russell Clay, but if you saw the show yesterday, you'll remember that Russell did a solid for Tyler Beaker. He showed up yesterday, so Russell was there yesterday. If you missed that show, you can catch it on demand on Facebook and catch it on demand at YouTube. You can type in Fantasy Sports Daily into your local podcast network, whether you're Apple Podcasts or Pandora, Spotify, YouTube Music, all of those. You can find Fantasy Sports Daily there. You can also go to FantasyGuru.com, click the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page. It'll show you the shows there that are stored. So if you missed the show yesterday or any of these shows, those are the ways to do it. And if you're with us today, you're going to get a little Tyler Beaker action because he's back. Tyler's going to join us today. Let's see. There we go. Tyler's going to join us about a half hour as we normally get on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We talk football. Give me one moment here. I'm choking myself to death. We'll talk with Tyler about Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Who's the quarterback of the Steelers? How do we draft these guys? Geno Smith. Lots of excitement about Geno Smith and the offense changing with Seattle. Jordan Addison with the off-the-field issues. Rashid Shaheed not fully healthy. Marvin Mims, is he somebody to talk about this year? Mike Gesicki, tight ends overall. We'll talk about that with Tyler in about a half hour. Before that, we'll talk baseball as we do every day here on the show. Mark Vientos, Sal Frelick, Nolan Arenado, Colton Cowser, Xavier Edwards, woohoo! Elly Cruz, Spencer Schwellenbach, Frankie Montas, Shane Baz, and Tyler Anderson. Some of that stuff is great. Some of that stuff not so much good. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Some injuries too. Volpe, Josh Lowe, Julio Rodriguez, Shohei Ohtani. Don't worry, it's about his pitching. Merrill Kelly, Justin Verlander, and maybe I misspoke yesterday on Merrill Kelly. We'll get to that too. Justin Verlander, Alex Cobb, and Walker Buehler. So again, I'm Ray Flowers. You can find me here every day, Monday through Friday, Fantasy Sports Daily at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time. You can find my work on the social media versus at the Ray Flowers. And thanks for joining us today. Tell a friend too about the free show every day, Monday through Friday here for FantasyGuru.com. All right, Mark Vientos hit a 2-run home run last night against the Rockies. Look, I think that he's been and there's been so many good storylines in baseball this year, right? There's been so many crappy storylines that I focus on all the time here on the show. But there's also a bunch of good storylines, and Vientos is one of the best storylines going. Now, of course, his success has come at the expense of Brett Beatty, who's still floundering down at the minor league level. Vientos has been so good that there just hasn't been a spot for Brett Beatty, who, without question, is a better prospect, according to everyone in the universe. But Vientos is hitting. He's got 17 home runs. He's got almost a .550 slugging percentage, and is about 250 at bats. And this is not just, I'm doing well for a youngster, and I've delayed the promotion of one of our top prospects for 6 months. This is a guy in Vientos that's a weekly starter in the fantasy space. He's been terrific. And that's not something that anyone expected. And he had that really strong start. And we're like, well, okay, there's something here, right? But no, this has been absolutely spectacular. And got to give the guy mad props for that. He's a 24-year-old who threw 68 games. So let's call it half a season, but not. He's on pace for 35 home runs and 90 RBIs. This is really good stuff. The strikeout rate's 26%. It's very manageable. He's driven the baseball with extreme authority, a 270 isolated power mark. Hats off. He has been terrific. He continues to hit and produce for the Mets and for us in the fantasy space. And now he's obviously not just part of their future. He's part of their present. And the Mets will build around him moving forward. So A really nice effort for him, highlighted by that 2-run home run last night. So the Brewers scored 16 runs yesterday, had 6 home runs. They had a kind of a good game offensively. Not surprising. We had some guys there with production. Sal Frelick was one of them. He had 4 hits. He's pretty good. But, yeah, and that's the real problem with Sal Frelick. Sal Frelick is somebody that I had very high expectations for, and I was not close to being alone in that boat. That boat was really full. That thing was overflowing with people saying, look, Frelick is a dude who is really good. And while he doesn't have power, he could hit 10 to 15 home runs. Haven't seen that guy. He's got a lot of speed. He could steal 30 bases. Haven't seen that guy. He's got 15 steals this year. Okay. 20 steals is probably where he's going to get. That's okay. If he was getting 20 steals and the hit tool was coming through as anticipated, because again, this is like a 60-65 hit tool on the 20-80 scale. Most scouts thought that if he struggled, he'd hit in the 270s. Hitting 274 right now. Okay, that's not bad. 15 steals, it's okay, right? And if that number was 25, we'd feel a lot better about Sal Frelick. The problem is he's got 2 home runs and 22 RBIs. He's not doing anything when he puts the ball in play. If he was a career 275 hitter with a 350 on base percentage, which is where he's at right now, I think that's a win. But you got to hit 10 to 15 home runs, man. You can't hit 2 or 3. Just doesn't, it's modern day baseball. We can't do that. It's not, Brett Butler in 1986. It just doesn't work. So I'm struggling here. The batted ball data is crap. He's looking way more like Luis Ariz than I anticipated he would. We'll see. I'm disappointed. And again, he had a big night last night. He had 4 hits, so let's not down the guy for having a big game. Let's look at him the last month. He's hitting 319. Okay, so he's been better the last month, hitting 333 the last 2 weeks. And Doug asked a good question here. Can his swing mechanics prevent him from power? That's always a good question, Doug, because you run into that battle. I mean, Sal Frelick is what? 5'9", 170. Like, we don't want him lifting the ball in the air more. Like, it's not going to work. Yeah, we had 20-plus home runs last year from Corbin Carroll, and look at this year. It was a mess for half the year, and you kind of sell out at times if you're that size. He's got an 8% barrel rate or launch angle, this year does Sal Frelick, same as last season, so exactly the same as last year. I think that's a very good spot for him. And again, when I said 10 to 15 home runs, that's not a high bar. 2 to 5 is a bad bar. And even if you're hitting 275 and you're hitting 2 to 5 home runs, you need to steal 30 bases. Even if, he's got 52 runs scored, even if he scores 80 runs and hits 275 with 20 steals, he has 4 home runs and 32 RBIs. Ugh. So again, I think at this point, he's really more of a fill-in guy when you have an injury, when you have a scenario where you need a boost, short-term kind of thing. That seems to be where he's settling in. And again, it's 160 career games. Okay. So there's time, but I think it's a little bit of a different, disappointing start, for him through his career. Now, at the other end of things, we got Nolan Arenado, who, has gone in the opposite direction. He's been a superstar in this league, and now the age is maybe starting to catch up to him a little bit. Arenado, you can make an argument that over, the first 8-9 years of his career here, that there has never been a better all-around third baseman than Nolan Arenado. Might have been a better defender. Maybe Brooks Robinson was better defensively. Might have been a better hitter. Maybe Mike Schmidt. But the overall game, you can make a case that Nolan Arenado is in that upper echelon of elite level performers at third base. And in fact, can make a case, right, that he's going to the Hall of Fame one day. Well, last year, the offense slowed a little bit. Okay, the back. And a little concern coming into the season, is it the back? Is it the age? Are both these things going to turn around? And we sit here with Nolan Arenado, and he's got a 720 OPS right now, which is terrible, right? It's the highest it's been in 3 months. Now, it's high because he went 3 for 3 with the walk last night, scored a couple of runs. He's had a hit in 7 straight games. Okay, so, this is like, all right, let's see if we can get that second half finish. The Cardinals really need, because they haven't gotten it pretty much at any point this season, to have Arenado and Goldschmidt both going offensively at the same time. They really haven't had that. Both guys having disappointing seasons, both guys having down seasons. Arenado's got 11 home runs, my God. But as I noted, he's got hits in 7 straight games. The last 2 weeks, he's hitting 327 with an 800. OPS. The last month, he's hitting 297 with an 800 OPS. So at least in the case of Arenado, while he's not sexy, while he's not hitting the ball like he did 5 years ago, while he's not in Colorado, he is back to the point of being usable in a mixed league. So at least we have that. It's going to be a down year. And then the questions will have to be assessed in the offseason. Is this who he is now? Is there more to give? It's been disappointing, though, thus far this season. Now, on the other side of things, the guy who hasn't been disappointing at all is Colton Cowser, who, if you haven't noticed, is basically the Orioles' leadoff hitter. Yeah, I know, but he's basically their leadoff hitter at this point. He had a 2-run home run yesterday, had a 2-run single yesterday. His third game this season with 4 RBIs. Interestingly enough, the other 2 games where he had 4 RBIs were back in April. So it's been a long time since he did that. But his last 20 games, which is the second half, Colton Cowser's got 19 RBIs. He's gone deep 5 times, which is on its own fantastic. If that was it, cool. But how about this? He's got a 419 on base percentage. How about this? He's hitting 355. I mean, this is banging work. And with all the fireworks and all the excitement, with the Santander, who we keep talking about, with the promotion of, a holiday, with the greatness that's been Gunnar Henderson this season, Colton Cowser has been special the last month. He's been special, and he's batting leadoff for the Orioles last night. Big game last night. Wanted to give him a shout out because we've talked about him in the cash game breakdown. He was in there yesterday. Wasn't he in there yesterday? Let me take a look. I say things like that, and I write so much stuff, and there's so many things going on. I mean, it's one of those things we're talking about where we've got the training camp scenario, which is coming up the August 16th, so next week. The training camp scenario is where the entire Fantasy Guru crew basically does what we're doing here, and that is they sit down, and for the entire day, everyone gives 45 minute to an hour-long presentations on certain topics. It's obviously geared for fantasy football. We got that going on. I'll be obviously part of that. I was just bringing that up as an example of things we're working on. Colton Cowser. Didn't have Colton Cowser in the cash game breakdown yesterday. It must have been the day before, or 2 days before. That is just an example of what's going on. So we're doing this show, my day, like anyone cares. But we're doing this show, trying to get that straightened out, the training camp behind the scenes. I've got questions in Discord for football and for baseball. I've got the dynasty questions for football too, which is another level. I'm writing football articles. I'm preparing football presentations. I'm writing DFS baseball and seasonal baseball on a daily basis. I'm doing bets. It's a lot of stuff. So sometimes you forget where everything is appointed, if you will. So I apologize for that. Back to what we were talking about here. Let's get back on the case with baseball. Colton Cowser's been terrific. Xavier Edwards, this is getting bananas. If it's not already bananas, it's already bananas. It's getting bananas, though. He had 2 more hits and a steal yesterday. I mean, we talked about him weeks and weeks ago. I talked about him when we did the Monday morning fab, and we talked about how I had him, and I said, everyone, go add this guy. Obviously, we can expect him to play on a daily basis the rest of the way. For the Marlins, probably going to play. Hopefully hit toward the top of the order. Qualified second base shortstop in a lot of leagues, all this kind of stuff. And here we are 35 games in, and dude's got 13 steals, which on its own is that plays, man. He's hitting 375, and it's like, whoa. It's even better than that. The last 2 weeks hitting 385 with a 960 OPS, which is not even, I mean, if he has a 760 OPS the rest of the way, okay. It's 960. In those 13 games, he's got 20 base hits and 8 steals. He is out of control. And it's almost like every night it's 2 hits. And I know it's not, but geez. I just wanted to give him some more props because I saw someone the other day in the Discord said he's going to lead me to a championship in fantasy. I don't know. He's playing like it right now. There's still a lot of season left, but he has been an absolute massive boost for those of us that picked him up off the waiver wire a month ago. He's been absolutely fantastic for the Marlins. Elly De La Cruz, when we speak about being fantastic, Elly De La Cruz, we had him on the cover. I was trying to think of how to say this. We had him on the cover of our draft guide at fantasyguru.com this year. And I think we were as aggressive as anyone else with him in the fantasy space. A lot of people were concerned about his approach. I talked a lot about that with you all. But the bottom line is Elly De La Cruz has lived up to every expectation. He went 3 for 5 last night, a couple of runs scored, stole a base. Okay. In 17 games in the second half, he's hitting 338 with 3 home runs. He's also stolen 13 bases. He's got 59 steals. He's right there at going 2060 this season. And we still got 7 weeks left. I mean, there is an outside chance of him going 30-70. There is a legitimate chance of him going 25-70. I mean, this is just special work, man. And, when he's locked in as he is right now, I mentioned the 338 batting average in the second half. He's basically unstoppable. He's a force. And as we've talked about here on the show, he is he should be, anyone that's a fan of baseball, he should be one of your most favorite players going. He's full of energy. He's full of passion. He's constantly aggressive on the base pass. He's learning Japanese, so he can talk to Shohei Ohtani. Like, this guy is a dude. And I can't wait to watch his career develop. Right now, he's one of the best players in baseball, and there might be another level. I mean, it's really, and in the fantasy space, just freaking dynamic work. Spencer Schwellenbach has been blazing hot as we transition over to some pitchers. Blazing hot this season. He's setting records for the strikeouts and walks and all this kind of stuff. Supposed to start today in Colorado, but he's not going to start. He's okay. He's not injured. But Grant Holmes is starting today. We'll talk about that in the cash game breakdown over at FG today. I'm writing that one here. Started writing it this morning. I'll write it when the show's over too. We don't know when Schwellenbach's next start is coming with the Braves. It's very likely that it'll be next week against the Giants at Oracle Park. Okay, that's most likely what's going to happen. Ray, why did they pull him out of the rotation this turn through? It's a thing we talk about all the time. It's workload. He threw 65 innings last season. He's already at 110 this year. I mean, and even teams that are in the playoff hunt, and even teams that, have to go to Grant Holmes. I mean, teams are going to be cautious, especially with these young guys down the stretch. So Schwellenbach, in the end, this is probably a good thing for him. He avoids Colorado. No one wants to pitch there, even though it's not always as bad as we think for pitchers. But no one wants to pitch there. He gets a little extra time for his body to heal. We'll see if there's any rust the next time out. There's always a chance there's something going on here. We have not heard that at all, though. So I'm going to say they're just skipping his start for the innings pitch management. He's been great. I assume he'll still be very effective, however long he's able to take the hill for the Braves. Frankie Montas struck out 7. We had yesterday Russell Clay on and said, "Go Frankie Montas" at the end. Remember, if you were watching it, we all laughed a little bit. He gave up 3 runs in 4 innings. That's not good. He had 7 strikeouts. Okay. Got a no decision against the Braves. He only gave up 2 hits. So, it wasn't, he walked 4 guys though. It's kind of a problem. 91 pitches in 4 innings is really not good. And he gave up a 3-run home run on one of the 2 hits to Austin Riley. He's just not, it's just not there. And I say that, because at one point in time, he threw 96 miles an hour and he had something hellacious. I think it was a slider, right? And this was a couple years ago. And then he hurt his back, and they tried to say it wasn't a big deal. This was back when he was with the Athletics. It wasn't a big deal. And his performance since then has never gotten back. And I wonder, I talk about my back issue all the time. So Montas, as we all know, Montas is in the streaming consideration discussion. That's it. It's not, we got to roll him out there. It's not, we want to start him in difficult matchups. Starting him against the Braves wouldn't have been advised anyway. I have him in my Dynasty League. I did not start him in that matchup against the Braves. So we'll continue to monitor here. We were hoping that there'd be a huge shift in pitch mix with his move to from the Brewers to the Reds. To be fair, it has changed. There's been some massaging there, which you like to see, and that's always the potential differentiator when it comes to pitching, is that when a player goes, and I said it backwards, he's with the Brewers now. When you make that change, you can't, you can work on mechanics and that kind of stuff, but that's not an overnight, right? That takes time. Teams are usually reluctant to do that in season too. But you can change pitch mix. You can cut this pitch. You can add this pitch. So that's something we'll continue to monitor with Frankie Montas. I don't think the changes that they're making or that they're going to make, it's going to change him above being a streaming option in mixed leagues. Now, Shane Baz is a very interesting guy. Shane Baz, was by the Rays and I think most of baseball expected to be like, if he struggles to live up to expectations, he's like an SP3 at the big league level. Most people thought he'd probably settle as an SP2, but there were people out there that believed he could be an ace, an SP1. and he hurt his arm and had to come back from that and everything. So the process has been obviously delayed with the Rays. He's back out there now. The velocity's fine, but he's struggling. And he did it again last night. 4 runs and 4 in the third innings against the Cardinals. That's not terrible, but it's obviously not good. And it's a continuation of just mediocre work. His ERA is almost, 4.3 through his 6 starts or whatever. So it's very mediocre work. And an issue that he's having right now is that despite throwing 97 miles an hour, that fastball is getting murdered. It's getting obliterated. And he throws the fastball 45% of the time. So almost half the time he's throwing that fastball. And it's just getting freaking hammered. 2 years ago, his last season, because he didn't pitch last year, 2022, his expected WOBA on the pitch was 442, which is astronomical. This year, his xWOBA on the pitch is 430. That's horrid. Okay. That means he's turning every batter in baseball who's hitting his fastball into Yordan Alvarez. He's turning every batter into Shohei Ohtani. He's turning every batter into Mookie Betts. That's the ball's getting murdered. And the exit velocity numbers and the batted ball data is through the roof. So we got to fix this. Okay. And that's, location and release point. There needs to be a tweak here, whether it's location of the pitch, whether it's the release point, whether it's tunneling his pitches better. We have to dive into this, get in the lab and figure out, is he moving his hand a little bit? People are picking up on it. Whatever the reason is, his fastball is getting murdered. And you can't be successful in this league, throwing a pitch half the time and getting it murdered like that. There is still a very bright future with him. Right now, though, it's like he's not a comfortable start. He just isn't. And we saw that again yesterday against the Cardinals. Now, Tyler Anderson's not a comfortable start. I have Tyler Anderson on my team. We've talked about it here on the show. Tyler Anderson was in the cash game breakdown yesterday over at fantasyguru.com. What do we have him? 2 or 3? What do I eventually settle at with him? 2. Brian was the number 1 guy. The number 2 guy was Tyler Anderson against the Yankees. Now, again, small slate yesterday, only 5 games, but okay. Tyler Anderson goes out there, give up 1 run over 6 innings against the Yankees. He got 7 strikeouts too. Like, I mean, it's one thing to say Tyler Anderson having some success, living on the edge and getting some ground balls that are finding gloves and batting average balls that play this and left on base percentage that. Okay, it's one thing to say that. It's another thing to say Tyler Anderson, who again had 7 strikeouts yesterday. Tyler Anderson, his last 6 outings, is averaging almost 10 strikeouts per 9 innings pitched. Like, what? You couldn't find a more different pitch mix and style of pitching from Shane Baz to Tyler Anderson, right? Totally different. Tyler Anderson's the one that's dominating? Like, his ERA, his last 6 starts, and I don't have the numbers directly in front of me, but his ERA last 6 starts is like 2.8, and he's averaging almost 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. Like, and he's saving my ass. It was in the labor. He's saving my ass. I picked him up off the waiver wire early, and it's like, and that's what's been one of the fun / super frustrating things in 2024 fantasy baseball is that which one of these schmucks is going to get it done? Which one of these guys that we know shouldn't be starting for us every week is going to make 22 starts for us and help? Tyler Anderson, of all people, was one of those guys. Crazy. And the strikeout stuff is just the bananas part. On the injury side of things, I'm looking like Max Headroom again. I don't know why that happens sometimes. You get in that little sprint where you get a little, like your lips get off. Or for those of you that are listening, you don't know what I'm talking about. But for those of you watching, it's like I look a little pixelated-ish. Looks like it's fine now. I don't know. Anthony Volpe, who hit a ball off his foot, is going to be okay. They're going to manage this here. They're not expecting an injured list stint because of the issue with his foot. So good news there with Anthony Volpe. Maybe he misses a game or 2, which is kind of disappointing because he's really swung a good bat over the last 3 weeks. But probably going to miss him for a day or 2. That's the expectation at this point. Again, these things change. That's our expectation at this point. Josh Lowe was removed on Thursday with a right knee contusion. X-rays were taken. They were able to rule out any kind of broken leg, fracture, anything like that. He fouled the ball off his leg. We know what this can become. We all have horror stories now about Kyle Tucker. So we shall see. I think obviously the Kyle Tucker situation is the outlier. It's not about the Josh Lowe thing. So we'll talk about that moving forward. But it seems like Josh Lowe should be okay. And he's been much better here in the second half. So that would be a loss, a significant one if he were to hit the injured list. His teammate, Julio Rodriguez, ran the base yesterday. He's obviously coming back from a high ankle sprain. There's still not a target date for a return for Julio Rodriguez. But on the positive side, running the bases is obviously a big deal. Doing it 2 days in a row says you didn't feel too bad after doing it the first day. There is a growing murmur that Julio Rodriguez could be activated before he's ready to play the field, and they could DH him to get his bat back in the lineup because the Mariners' offense as a whole has not been good this year. Now, Luke Raley's picked things up of late. Mitch Haniger's had some moments. Obviously, Cal Raleigh's been very good. They added Randy Arozarena, Justin Turner getting back. So there's hope down the stretch here for the Mariners. But to date, it's been rough getting these guys going. Hopefully, Julio Rodriguez will be back maybe even early in the week next week. So he's getting closer, which is great to see because just a couple of days ago we were talking about we have no idea. We still don't have a date, but we're feeling pretty good about him being back out there next week. Shohei Ohtani, who I talked about earlier, he's going to hope next month to start pitching to hitters. And this has been a discussion point, right? He's been super effective this year. He's been a star this year. In fact, he's probably going to win the MVP award, right? Do we make this guy a pitcher again? Dodgers paid him $700 million. They want him to pitch. He's going to pitch again. He's going to throw some bullpens, maybe get up on the mound and again, and start facing batters here in the month of September with the hope that he'll be able to pitch next season. And that'll be interesting because the Dodgers, as we've talked about, even if they say Ohtani's fine, he's going to pitch for us this year, that's the plan. What's he going to do? Is he going to make 22 starts to 130 innings? Like, they're not letting him throw 180 innings. They're just not. And especially coming back from surgery, especially because they can't have him blow his arm out, which has been the issue, right? Do you pitch this guy, have him blow his arm out, and then not be able to use him as a hitter? But he's going to pitch next year. I fully believe that. He's making steps now to make that a reality, hopefully, again, to face hitters next month. Merrill Kelly, who we talked about this at the end of the show yesterday, and I might have misspoken. And in fact, it's starting to look like I did. And I apologize for what I said yesterday because it seems like it was completely wrong. Torey Lovullo told reporters that Merrill Kelly could return Sunday against the Phillies. Now, he did not say he will start Sunday. As we discussed yesterday, there was a report. One of you guys brought it up and said, "Hey, Ray, there's a report." And I said, it's not going to happen. Could happen. Okay. Not definitive, but it could happen. I misspoke yesterday. Apologies for that. I was too dismissive. It certainly sounds like it's a potential. He didn't look great the other day. My problem was I had my days off of the week. So I think I said he pitched Wednesday. He actually pitched Tuesday. Ray can't count here. Yeah, that's good. So there's a chance that Merrill Kelly's back this weekend against the Phillies. You wouldn't want to start him anyway, but he could be back this weekend. Justin Verlander is going to make a rehab start, speaking of the weekend, on Saturday at AAA, coming back from that neck issue. Maybe another two starts in minor league level, maybe 3. Again, the neck issue that was no big deal is going to cost him 2 months. I don't know. Let's call it 2 weeks from today. He'll be back at the big league level if things go well. Alex Cobb's going to make a season debut today, so check that out with the Guardians. He's been it was his arm, and then it was his hip, and I think it's hip now. I don't know. He's going to give it a go for the Guardians. A very effective pitcher when healthy. He's healthy enough to go today. He's going to go into that Guardians rotation, and we'll see. And then finally, before we talk to Tyler Beaker, Walker Buehler, let's give one last injury update or progression update. I don't know. Is he injured? We've talked about this. I don't know if he's injured. He allowed 1 run over 5 1/3 innings last night at AAA. Finally, at least the results were there. Okay, he was sharp in the outing. He gave up 1 hit. He struck out 5. Still walked 3 guys, which for him, but that's doable. What he did last night, he brings to the big league level. He can get outs. Now, that's not to say he's going to be a top 25 pitcher the rest of the way. Like, let's hope he's a streaming option, right? Let's hope he's just a guy we can utilize. But that was a good effort, and you have to anticipate that he is back in the rotation next week for the Dodgers. River Ryan, probably the casualty there. We'll see. Bobby Miller's getting close to a return too, so the Dodgers getting healthy here for that stretch run on the hill, or trying to get healthy. Yamamoto's a little bit further behind these other 2 guys, but it seems like Walker Buehler finally is at least going to be able to get some outs at the big league level, even if they're not impressive or sexy outs. All right, so there's our baseball talk for there. Remember, leave your comments or questions in the Discord, or excuse me, I say Discord all the time. In the chat room, leave those comments and questions, and we'll get back to them at the end of the show. But before we do that, we got to talk to our guy. He's normally on Thursdays, but he's on today on a Friday because he had some family things to take care of. It was a positive, happy thing. So we're not going to pry to his personal life here, but it was good news nothing bad going on. So you don't need to send him flowers unless you just want to send him flowers because you think he's a great guy. I'm sure he'll accept those. It's Tyler Beaker of fantasyguru.com. Tyler, how you doing, bud?
Doing great, Ray. Recently just came back from the beach where we spent 3 days in rain, mist, and fog. A very, very uneventful beach week. The day we left yesterday, we took all the rain with us. Now we're getting photos from the group that we left. It's sunny and they're enjoying the beach right now. So I'm glad we took one for the team, for them. Glad they're enjoying their final day at the beach there.
Were you able, I mean, do you fish? Was it just hanging out on the beach, throwing a frisbee? Like, what was the plan, pending the weather?
Hanging out, playing some games like ladder ball, some horseshoes, some washers, just like those kinds of beach games, just hanging out.
So what did you end up doing did you just play through the rain or did you stay in the house?
We played through the rain one day just out of stubbornness.
Okay.
But no, a lot of inside board games and other kinds of things instead.
Well, I hope you had a good time. It
was all right. Yeah,
that's always disappointing. Yeah, but at least you weren't stuck working. So, there's that. Okay, or maybe not. You really enjoy what you do. So maybe that I misspoke there. Tyler Beaker of fantasyguru.com joining us here. Let's talk a little bit about a bunch of scenarios here. And I think that you and I it's hard because I talk to you and Russell and Armando each week. And I talk to Jeff Mans too. So I'm talking 4 different people about football. So I didn't go back through my notes, but I'm pretty sure at some point we talked about the Steelers quarterback situation. And everyone kept thinking Russell Wilson. And now it's like, maybe Justin Fields has got a real shot to start in week 1. He's healthier of the two. The team seems to like him. What are we doing here? Because again, neither one of these guys is someone that you're drafting to be your QB1. But if Justin Fields is the starter for this team, he could be a QB1. And he would be a dynamic option for those people that are thinking of drafting him as a 2 or a 3 in Superflex leagues.
Let's start by saying Russell Wilson has been battling a calf injury that occurred right before training camp. So we really haven't seen him play a ton. Just on this past week, we started seeing him come back for some 7-on-7s, started getting sprinkled into some 11-on-11s. But they've been really taking it slow with him. I think the news hype is warranted given the other quarterbacks we've seen coming out of Pittsburgh in recent years. Guys like Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges. Like, it's exciting to watch Justin Fields relative to what we've been watching in Pittsburgh camps. So I don't blame any beat reporters getting excited about that, maybe even carrying that a bit too far. However, I'd still be very surprised if it wasn't Russ as the week 1 starter, given that he's already starting to come back to practice. The Fields trade, like we talked about it, like you said, it did have a trade escalator in terms of the initial trade was a 2025 6th-round pick that could escalate all the way up to a 4th-round pick if he played over 51% of the snaps. So for that reason, I imagine the Steelers are ideally continuing to view Fields as a project player and helping develop him, letting Russell Wilson be their starter. And maybe it's not until midway through the season, once we get past that 51% mark in terms of possible snaps, that we see Fields on the field. I do think he's an interesting Superflex 2 quarterback option or a tournament throw in best ball contests, but really as your QB3, and you're really only trying to be selective when you use him on teams where you've got two solid guys there, and he's just really a wild card that you have the luxury of taking a swing at. I'm being really selective with that. I have no interest in Russell Wilson. I don't think that he's a player you need to draft here. And if you get a Superflex league where you've got guys with late buys, I think a swing on a guy like Justin Fields does make sense.
Another quarterback who is getting a lot of hype. It's almost like every day I open up the news feed and there's some positive report about Geno Smith. Now, there was a negative thing about his hip or whatever, but Geno's going to run more. The OC is going to shape the offense around him. He's got these weapons to throw the ball to. I'm getting the sense that we're getting some groundswell of excitement with Geno Smith. We've seen some great stuff from him. We've seen some moderate stuff from him. Where do we expect him to be in 2024?
Well, I'm really excited about the offense that Ryan Grubb is going to bring to Seattle, coming from Washington. That was a team, their Huskies in the FBS rankings were top 10 in numerous statistics in terms of passing productivity and efficiency. I think it's a great fit with Geno and the weapons they have there in terms of the pass catchers. The mobility thing, I mean, I don't know. This guy's 34 years old. He had a 3% designed rush rate last year, 5% scramble rate. That kind of falls in line with what Michael Penix did during his final season at Washington. And that's from a guy that ran a 4.46, not a 34-year-old Geno. Right. So Geno, 37 carries, 155 yards, 1 touchdown last year, non-factor in the rushing department. I think that's going to probably stay static and not really change that much. I'm just chalking this up as camp talk. It's August 9th. We're just trying to find things to talk about right now.
Well, let's talk about a situation that's off the field that is going to spill over onto the field. I'm talking with Tyler Beaker here on Fantasy Sports Daily. We spent so much time this offseason, Rashid Rice. Nothing's happening with his legal case. And I think there seems to be a growing sentiment that, like, he might not even get suspended this year. Like, we just don't, it doesn't seem like we're moving in that direction. Flip side, Jordan Addison, who a lot of people aren't really talking about in this respect, he might be in trouble of getting a suspension. Mike Florio said, look, I think a 3-game suspension is likely for the DUI that Addison got. His hearing is set for early October, so there could be a ruling in his case. We could see a suspension at some point in the season from him. We have the questions about who's going to be throwing the football to him anyway. Where are we at with Jordan Addison? Because, again, I think a lot of people, yeah, he did get a DUI, and it sounds like his case is progressing more quickly than the situation with Rashid Rice.
Yeah, Rashid is right. So, like, we've seen his situation go where we were expecting him to miss a sizable chunk of the season to they haven't even set like court dates or anything, where I'm expecting him to just play the full year. As such, we've seen his ADP go from 85 at its lowest point all the way up to 55 in recent underdog drafts. So I think we're seeing the giant rise in Rice because we have no clarity there. We do have clarity with Addison, like you said, with the date of October 7th. And adversely, he's dropped from a guy you could get around an ADP of 66 down to 86, a 20-player drop. And like we're seeing that risk of him missing several games baked into his ADP. Like that fall, I think is warranted. And that's about an appropriate price, around pick 90 overall. Plus or minus, you'll see in some draft rooms. It depends every single draft. And I think that's fair. Like we also have to keep in mind that Addison last year was highly dependent on his touchdown rate among all wideouts with 50-plus targets there. Last year, there were 80 of those. He had the 7th highest among all wideouts in touchdown percentage in terms of fantasy points that stem from touchdowns, which is not really productive in terms of a year-over-year correlation, knowing how fickle touchdown rates are. He's a tough bet to me as that round 6 pick, but now we're getting him at like round 8, round 9. He's still a year 2 wideout. He still has strong draft capital. I think he's a fine click, quote-unquote, at ADP, not a player I'm rushing to grab. But that's more just a roster construction thing because of all the running backs that are going in that around that 90 selection. There's so many great backs that you can choose from. So Addison's just not a guy I'm generally gravitating toward, but I think he's okay if you're a drafter that negates wide out early in your drafts. Just be aware that there's going to be some peaks and valleys, especially with that touchdown dependency.
Tyler, we obviously have a very different scoring setup in, the Scott Fish Bowl. And so, Rashid Rice is somebody that went bananas there. Everyone was talking about Rashid Rice, draft Rashid Rice. His ADP over there is 700, picks before what it is on the open market in a traditional setup. He's got an issue with the hamstring. And so that's a little, it's early and there's time and okay, maybe that's not a big deal. But I wanted to talk more about Rashid Shaheed. Did I say Rice again? Rashid Shaheed. Sorry if I misspoke. The Saints guy. Shaheed, where is he at in a traditional setup where we're not counting, return yards? Because there was that excitement for Shaheed in Scott Fish Bowl because of the return yards. He certainly seems to be very high in the pecking order. Might be the number 2 receiver, right? Really with the Saints. What are your thoughts with him in 2024?
Yeah, I do think he has a strong chance to be that number 2 wideout, especially given the injury to Juwan Johnson, who knows what they're doing with Taysom Hill, that kind of thing. But right now he's going around pick 100 in ADP, and I think that's perfect for him. He's a great draft click for best ball formats. He's a great explosive flex play in start-sit formats for when the bye weeks start piling up. And he's an interesting asset in those return yardage leagues that you just discussed. Last season, he was 3rd in punt return yardage, 9th in kick return yardage. And the new rules are going to shake things up there in terms of the kick return rules and things, but we don't see many full-time players like Shaheed, who could be the wide receiver 2 on this team very easily, also playing on special teams these days. So I think he's definitely worth the risk of the investment early in those types of leagues. The hamstring injury, though, I did want to circle back on that because he did miss 2 games last year with what was a thigh contusion, which I'm basically reading as a quad injury, not a hamstring, which I think is super, super important to make the distinction because recurring hamstring injuries are super brutal for these deep wide receivers that rely on that deep speed. Did want to make a note of that this is a new injury for Shaheed. And he entered the league a bit late in his career. I think he was like a 24-year-old rookie. So right now, age 26, he's like in his prime. This is when we want to invest in a guy like Shaheed. So I'm monitoring this hamstring injury closely, but I do think he could be in for a big year, especially in Clint Kubiak's offense.
Tyler, what about Marvin Mims, who, in a return yardage league, a lot of excitement with him there too. There were moments last year where he flashed with the Broncos. Obviously, overall, the season wasn't what was anticipated. We got a report from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN with all the greatness is going to happen. Marvin Mims is going to catch, 100 passes and 1,500 yards, and he's going to run the Wildcat, and he's going to do the Philly special. Like, he's going to do everything on this team. Who is Marvin Mims? Because we saw moments again, and this is a guy that really does seem to have the ability to stretch the field, do some exciting things, but going to be enough volume with the Broncos? Is he someone you're interested in taking that shot on later in drafts?
Yeah, each offseason we do a rookie profile for some of the high-profile guys, and Mims was a guy that I analyzed last year. He was a round 2 selection. As a high schooler, he set the all-time single-season receiving yardage record and the career receiving yardage record in Texas, where football is everything.
Yep.
Went to Oklahoma then, where he averaged 19.5 yards per reception over his career, 2.95 yards per out run, very, very efficient mark right there, and routinely lined up all over the formation. The problem is he goes now to a Sean Payton system where we've seen inconsistent deep threats. Guys like Devery Henderson, Kenny Stills, Robert Meacham, Ted Ginn, like all those guys. They're boom bust, probably better wide receiver 4 flexes, if anything. And now, so he goes to a system that's not great for him, and he goes to a quarterback that's not great for him with Bo Nix under center. 6.8 average depth of throw last year. That was 161st out of 165 qualifying quarterbacks from the FBS. So to me, I love Mims. I think he's a great profile. Put him on another offense, and we're talking about a different situation here. But he's just a best ball only late round click for me, because in home leagues, I mean, he's really tough to ever put into a starting lineup. His ADP is also ridiculous across platform to platform. On Yahoo, it's 170 overall. ESPN, 218. NFL.com, 256. CBS, undrafted. He's not even listed. So pick your spots. Maybe just not on Yahoo. That's probably the best advice I can offer.
Tyler Beaker, Ray Flowers here on Fantasy Sports Daily. Tyler's normally with us on Thursdays. He's joining us obviously on Friday this week. Tyler, I try to ask questions about the tight end position because, we got to cover all the positions, number one. Number two, there are people that don't draft tight ends early, that won't draft tight ends early. They're going to stream tight ends. There's people that are going to take 2 or 3 of these guys toward the end of their drafts and try to make do with it. And Mike Gesicki is one of the rare guys that is not costly on draft day. No one's depending on him being a real true thing, but he's with the Bengals team where there certainly seems to be an opportunity. You got his head coach talking him up. And unlike a lot of guys in the zone where Gesicki comes off the draft board, this guy's caught 70 passes in an NFL season before, and he's an athletic guy. So what are the odds that Gesicki ends up being somebody that we're talking about in a couple of months as something other than, he's just a bye week fill-in? Is there some meat on the bones, as they say, with Gesicki?
I do not think so. Okay. And partly is because of the reason that we talk a lot about offensive systems at Fantasy Guru, and this offensive system that the Bengals did move on from their offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan. But we're still going to see his replacement, who's an incumbent, the quarterback's coach, Dan Pitcher, carry over much of the playbook and offensive tendencies. Out of all quarterbacks with 1,000 plus pass attempts that are supposed to be starters this year, Burrow has the second highest percentage of pass attempts going to wide receivers throughout his career. He is dead last in tight end target rate among all quarterbacks that fit that criteria as well. So there's just not a lot of volume in terms of what we should expect going to Gesicki. And it's not like he's been a consistent target earner year after year after year in multiple offenses. He's also very poor at blocking, which frequently has him hitting the bench. That saps away snaps, opportunities. I think he's a fine click in best ball stacks where you're stacking the Bengals. But off that, I think he's off the redraft radar for me, outside maybe some FFPC dart throws where it's tight end premium, and you're just hoping that I'm wrong here and he hits late in the season.
Well, I hope you're wrong a little bit because he's my backup tight end in Dynasty. He's been my backup tight end for a couple of years now. I have George Kittle, so I'm okay. But let's keep the tight end talk going for one more second here, Tyler. I always say this. I'm not drafting a second tight end. I think you're in that same boat, right? Like in the redraft league, you're not taking a second tight end. Correct.
So, yeah.
Okay.
There will be very few instances where I ever do that.
Okay. Let's say that Ray and Tyler, you guys are idiots. I'm taking a second tight end. Okay. Because some people love it. They're going to do it. Okay. Let's help them out. Gesicki is not a guy you would be targeting as your second tight end. Give us a name of a guy you would be targeting as that second tight end if you're looking to draft one. Give me someone in that, 15 to 30 range at the tight end position that, maybe I see some reasons to think this guy could be a usable piece all season long.
Well, this is the low-hanging fruit, but it's TJ Hawkinson at tight end 15 right now. I think he's the only reason why So here's the thing. I've been talking about taking elite quarterback and elite tight end, either one of those as a building block in your drafts early, the first 4 or 5 rounds. If you don't go that way, I think it does make sense at some point to try to pivot to punting tight end entirely, given how flat the scoring is, and just making that upside swing for Hawkinson late in the year, where he could finish as a top 3, top 5 selection on a per game basis once he's finally healthy and back up and running. So for that reason, I think he's worth taking a swing if you punt the position entirely. Other guys we could mention are guys like Tyler Conklin, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. I think all those guys in the AFC East, are interesting dart throws. But Hawkinson's the guy that I think I would be willing to make that exception of holding 2 tight ends, given that he's particularly cheap on some platforms and he really hits your lineup optimally late in the year where those points matter the most. So that would probably be the only exception where we talked about 2 tight ends on a singular team. It'd be if you were drafting TJ Hawkinson.
A little follow-up on Hawkinson. There was a significant injury to his knee. He's going to have a new quarterback throwing the ball this year. There weren't a lot of times that it felt like he and Jefferson and Addison were all really going 100% last year, right? So you say top 3 tight end for Hawkinson when he's healthy, and I'm not disputing that, but what does that look like? Because there were a lot of games last year where it was 8 catches, big kind of. Are we still talking about that kind of production in this offense, or is he just a top 5 tight end because the rest of the tight end position is so lowly on a weekly basis?
Well, the rest of the tight end position is very variable, leaning heavily on touchdowns. Hawkinson is that guy that can be an acute target earner. We've seen him do it in multiple offenses with multiple quarterbacks, and I think that kind of makes me a bit more bullish than the idea of it's a rookie QB in a new situation. Probably not going to be heavily force-feeding Jefferson, Hawkinson, and Addison all equally. But I think that the 7 to 8 targets is probably a reasonable expectation here. And I mentioned the ADP of another site of Marvin Mims. Let me go to his ADP here. On Yahoo in a home league, 150. On ESPN, 118. NFL.com, 127. CBS 114. So on Yahoo League specifically, I think Hawkinson's worth that swing there, where he's going 3 to 4 rounds later than every other platform. There's some risk, but I think he also offers a ceiling that the other guys going in that range just simply do not offer.
I love that, by the way. ADP for all the sites like that. That's great. I don't think enough people talk about that. I'm serious. I think, and that's because we talk about ADP. There's a podcast and the 20 podcast and the product over at fantasyguru.com talking about ADP. Check that out. But yeah, where you're playing matters, because whether the rankings at the site are right or not, people that aren't listening to this show, people that aren't subscribed to fantasyguru.com, they're going to follow those numbers. And so, so pay attention to that. A 3 or 4 round difference for a player is a significant mark. Before we let you go, Tyler, a couple of comments here in the chat. First of all, Jim C says, Tyler, I want to thank you for your bet last night. 2nd-year member, 1st year with the betting package, and I hit on your first bet. So Jim says, thank you. I'm going to ask this. What was your bet? I'm sorry. I saw you post it, but I didn't read it. Do you remember offhand what it was?
Yes, it was the Patriots halftime and full time. So that's basically meant they had to be in the lead entering halftime and to win the game overall. They ended up doing both.
You feel good about bets? Because we also had a DFS article. Armando Marsal put a DFS article. You feel good about that with the preseason? Like to me, it's like, I don't know. It seems it's very difficult because you don't know who's playing and when they're going to play, what the offense is going to look like, what the defense is going to look like. Am I off on that, or do you get a little bit of that too?
So a lot of my bets are quarterback contingent, where we know the room's rotations and who will and will not be playing. Okay. So for that game last night, we knew that the Carolina Panthers were not going to be starting Bryce Young. They were not going to be starting Andy Dalton, who was injured. Mm-hmm. They had Jack Plummer, a guy that doesn't play, and Jake Luton, a guy who was just signed recently. So to me, it was a battle of the Patriots quarterback room, which had Brissett, Drake May, Joe Milton, who's awesome, Bailey Zappi, who played a lot more than I expected. Those 4 against 2 guys that probably are not going to make an NFL 53. So I took that foursome against the other 2 guys, knowing the halftime bet was basically a bet against Jack Plummer, and then the full-time game was the collective Patriots are going to beat the collective Panthers. So really, I base my bets for preseason are based on quarterback expectations in terms of playing time. I'm doing the DFS write-up today, so I'll have a bunch of notes on that for the website over at fantasyguru.com. I'll have some bets out as well for the 3 games slate tonight, which should be a fun one.
Look at Ty's got a smile on his face. He's looking forward to
Yes,
that.
I love preseason. This is my bread and butter, man. My jam.
All right. I view it exactly the opposite, so I'm glad we have you because I know that a lot of our users are in agreement with you. We have David P. who's asking a question here. David P. says, I don't hear much about Garrett Wilson or Drake London. What are your thoughts about these two wide receivers, and do you like them over Mike Evans? Thank you, and have a good weekend. I will say this, David. Yesterday, Russell Clay and I talked about Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, so if you missed that, you can always listen to that show on demand. I think that both these guys, Wilson and London, arrows pointing up. Everyone's excited about Wilson, with the quarterback change. Everyone's excited about London with the quarterback change. And then you've got Mike Evans, who just does his thing every year. So talk us through these three guys. All of them are top 20 wide receivers. Maybe they're top 15 for you. Maybe they're even more aggressive. What do you think about Evans, London, and Wilson?
Yeah, I'm much more apt to buy on the younger guys that are ascending talents rather than the age 30 plus wideouts that have fallen past the cliff and are a bit more touchdown reliant. Hate to say that about Evans, but he's probably going to be that entering the twilight of his career. Wilson, though, 4th in targets last year, despite that group of quarterbacks he played with. Sorry, Zach Wilson, if you're listening. Not so great. I expect a lot more efficiency and a lot more production from Garrett Wilson, especially in the touchdown department with Aaron Rodgers there. And then London, just the Atlanta offense, massive night and day difference with Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator, coming over from the Rams. A lot more three wide receiver sets, a lot more pace, a lot more passing. The Arthur Smith Stone Age era is over. We're going to be excited about watching Atlanta football games now on Sunday. The Bucks, question mark. Liam Cohen now entering as the OC. I think that there's some questions with that offensive line as well. Like, they were not a great unit overall last season. To me, I think Evans is just a fine click. I'll be honest, don't really gravitate toward him because he's going at that 2-3 turn. There are other guys I'm more excited about, like Malik Neighbors, DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp. I'm kind of grabbing those guys over Mike Evans. And London and Wilson, they're more of 1-2 turn players, guys going in the top 15 overall. So these guys are kind of in a separate bucket, and I think they're distinctly classified with their ADP.
When Russell was on yesterday, when we were talking about the Jets, we also talked about Mike Williams. Your thoughts there? Does his? I mean, we all know what it could be. We also know what it could be. Your thoughts on Mike Williams, and how does his availability or lack of availability impact Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, 18 missed games over the last 2 seasons. Not ideal. But what he does offer is some size and speed on the perimeter. Basically what Alan Lazard was paid a lot of money to do. I think Mike Williams will actually be able to do it when healthy and on the field. So I think he's an interesting angle from an X's and O's perspective, given that he can be that prototypical X, that big-bodied wide receiver, and let Garrett Wilson do his thing as the intermediate guy. I don't really have any strong takes on Mike Williams. He is what he is at this point in his career. Right. He's going to make some flashy plays, and he's going to jump up in the air with a lot of you gasping your breath and being like, oh my goodness, how's he going to land? Right. And he's going to fall flat on his back and be out for the rest of the game. I love his
He'll probably catch
play.
The pass, though. Then
yes, he will. That's one distinction that he has relative to his peers. I do think he's a very exciting player. I just wish he could stay healthy. Jets overall, though, I think things are pointing up. I really like the offensive line additions they made this offseason in free agency and the NFL draft. If this team can stay healthy, namely a QB and offensive line, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the Jets in 2024.
Tyler Beaker is part, obviously, of what we do at fantasyguru.com. And as you can see there on the screen, we've got the package available right now. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner to get all of his analysis in the preseason through the regular season. You can get him as the part of the live stream every Tuesday, at 7:00 Eastern time. He's with us every Thursday, even though he's on Friday this week. He's with us every Thursday. What are you working on right now, Tyler, that's going to come out in the next couple of days?
Working on a write-up for the preseason slate for tonight. That's really it. Working on that right now. Okay. We got our slot wide receiver grid for next week. More best ball rankings. I've got a super flex set of rankings for auctions and overall rankings as well on the website that I'm going to update early next week. Just a ton of stuff. This is like, it's the hot and heavy season right now. Now the preseason has started, training camps have started. We are no longer in the doldrums of July. We are ready for football. I'm excited.
Is that your draft book that you're talking about with the rankings?
Correct.
And the auction? Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Yes. That's available for download over at fantasyguru.com.
Yeah. And that's one of the things we offer. We've got rookie rankings, dynasty rankings, PPR rankings, non-PPR rankings, QB, 2 QB rankings, super flex rankings, tight end premium rankings. there's a spot for all of that over at fantasyguru.com. If you have a problem finding it, hit us up in Discord. We'll be happy to direct you to the right place to find it, because I know there's a lot of information there. Tyler, thanks for stepping in today. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. I hope you have a nice weekend. I hope that the rain stops soon. I don't want to see the rain follow you constantly. That's not ideal. And have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right, thanks. Have a good weekend, guys.
Yeah, that's Tyler Beaker. You can follow him again on Twitter X at Tyler Beaker. Check him out, folks. You don't want to miss his work. It is great, great stuff. Before we shut things down here, I did see a comment earlier. What's up, Jack S? What up? What up? Doug M says, Ron Santo, we're having the discussion about greatest third baseman of all time. I don't think Ron Santo's in the conversation for the greatest of all time. Of course, he's one of the better third basemen of all time. Another guy, Adrian Beltre, him too. But yeah, Ron Santo's one of the best third basemen of all time. I don't think he stacks up compared to Nolan Arenado, but hey, we'll see. Hopefully Arenado doesn't have that quick end to his career and he's able to extend things out and all of that. But good call on Ron Santo. Is obviously a name that he's beloved in the city of Chicago. I'm Ray Flowers. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily. We're on every day, Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. We usually go about an hour. Monday and Tuesday, it's me riding solo, talking baseball the whole time. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we talk football halfway through the show, as we did again today. Normally, despite this week with a little change, normally it's Armando Marçal Wednesdays, Tyler Beaker on Thursdays, Russell Clay on Fridays. That'll be the plan we return to again next week. So tell a friend about the show. Appreciate you watching here for free. Head over to fantasyguru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. If you've got any questions, hit up our support team at support@fantasyguru.com, support@fantasyguru.com. Send them an email. They'll help you out. Don't forget to listen to Elite Sports with Jeff Manns Monday through Friday on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio from 3 to 6. And head over to that Discord room. Myself, Armando, Tyler, Russell, everyone's in there answering questions all day long. We're here to help you win in 2024. For Tyler Beaker, I'm Ray Flowers. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.